Geoffrey Mwangi is a former CEO at the NHIF, and he had worked in that organization for many years. So he understands about healthcare financing. He's our guest for the next hour as we seek to understand how SHA is being rolled out and how healthcare financing is now working. Geoffrey, good morning.
Thank you.
Karibu sana
Asante
to
sana.
Fixing the Nation. We do it one conversation at a time.
Okay.
This one with you is an important one. But to welcome you, Janet will give you the day's quote. Listen to the words and let's see what you think of them. What's your interpretation of this quote?
This one comes all the way from Germany, a German journalist and one of the founding members of the Red Army faction, basically a radical leftist group. She said, "Protest is when I say I don't like this. Resistance is when I put an end to it." Your reflections.
Well, it can't come at a better time.
Right.
Like what is happening now. And yeah, that is it. Yeah. Protest is when I say I don't like this. Resistance, you have to stamp yourself, put an end to it, and come out clearly to say that what you meant you don't like, you don't like.
Nice.
Well, yeah, it works well with the civil world, where sometimes, people have to come up and organize themselves for their better good. Right.
It's a good reflection.
Geoffrey, you worked at NHIF for a number of years, rising all the way to CEO. Yeah. Just for those who may not have seen or heard of you during that time, how many years was it that you worked at NHIF, and which years were you CEO of NHIF?
Okay, yeah, I've worked for NHIF for over 20 years, but I was CEO from the period 2016 to 2018. That's when I was CEO. Before, I was a director finance, I was manager finance, and many other levels here down. Yes.
Now we call it the defunct NHIF. It's no longer in existence. There's a law that said repeal NHIF, do away with it. Let's move on into Social Health Authority, which will manage 3 funds. And those funds will be, taking care of universal health coverage. Universal health coverage is something that we know Kenyans have been pushing for a long time. In the build-up to it, many people from cabinet secretaries to MPs and all were saying, we are moving away from NHIF because NHIF is just a pit of chaos, trouble, scandals, theft, thuggery. What do you say to that?
Well, that was good. You move away from it because it's not functioning, it's not working. But then you need to give us something better that is functional, that is working. So NHIF has been there for over 60 years, and it has moved over, transited over and over. And the new law was also good because it created, it enhanced the funds. Now the challenge is how the implementation phase was done and how people were transitioned through the change. I think that's the biggest link that we missed out. Yeah, because change is good, especially if it is good change. But then how you manage that change means everything. And what we see around is the people who are trying to manage the change, trying to reflect on what NHIF was not doing, which is okay, but not giving us a better alternative of what should happen and what should be there. I think we had another show with you, Eric, previously, and I said the law is okay. The law has been there. The law was formulated many years over time. So what the new administration did was just to make it be. Create the 3 funds, that is the social health, the primary health care, and the chronic and critical emergency fund, which are good funds if we are to say we transit to UHC. That is okay, but now what benefits are people getting? Now that's the missing link, the implementation, all the issues around it. I think that's where we missed the ship. The changeover has not been good, and it's good we come out and say it's not been proper and it can be done better.
If you are still at the helm, let's just say for argument's sake, you're there and you are tasked with transitioning. Number one, would you say, yep, I think we need to shut this down, NHIF is defunct, it's not working, or would you say, let's fix it? That's the 2 options, shut it down, fix it, or would you say, let's transition and let's do it this way? What decision would you make?
Before he answers that,
yes.
sorry. I just wanted to get clarity. So NHIF was not working?
No. NHIF was working. It was delivering as per the laws then and as per the mandate. Let me say this. From around 2013, 2014, we did a lot of change in NHIF. And I remember, you remember the days when, before, just in Kebake came in, we tried to push some law. I think it was Gil who was the CS then. We tried to, the NHIF thing and all this kind of thing. We tried to push some laws then, but they were not accepted. And that's when the transition began. So it's not a one-day off thing, you know, because people have been meant to believe that this is just a new thing that came. The transition has been there. Now, what do we mean by transition? Is a change of law, change of act. That was happened. We repealed the NHIF Act, brought in a new act to enable the operations. Now, what are the issues we are talking about? Is that has the act been implemented? Has the new act been implemented the way it's supposed to function? What we've been hearing out is just a lot of noise. That, you know, we brought in this because NHIF was not working, you know, like trying to point some failures to try to justify why you are not moving now, you know, because if it was not working, should we have? Something functional, something working. And the laws are okay, the 3 funds are good, but what don't we have? The proper implementation mechanism. Right now, I don't think even
We'll get into that, sorry, Geoffrey, but I just wanted to get clarity because, again, we do get that a lot. NHIF was not working, NHIF was not working. So I want to know, before we get now into SHIF and holding it accountable as it is right now, from perhaps anecdotal experience, people will say, NHIF was working for civil servants and for select others, a few select others. True, false?
Well, there were various schemes. We had what we used to call the national scheme, which was the normal deductions people do over payroll, and the informal sector put in some money there. The government at some point decided, instead of paying or giving allowances to their employees over their payslip, they looked for an insurance package for them, and they came into NHIF, and we offered that package. So it had a bit of enhanced benefits because you could get comprehensive services. Remember, they were being deducted through payroll and their employer has put in some money into it. What did that bring in forth? It allowed many other employers to start paying for their employees. Remember, if we are to attain UHC in the social health setup, there should be what we call employee contributions. You cannot do employee contributions alone. There should be government putting in its kitty because the less deserved need to be paid for, as those in the informal sector put in their own contribution. So these were just the beginning of some change and to transition us to say we have fully attained UHC. So yes, they were getting better services, but we also pushed in for the other national scheme member to start getting equivalent of the same services. Like when we brought in MRI services, chemotherapy, radiotherapy, we opened up even for the national health members to get the services from places like Nairobi Hospital because Kenyatta Hospital was congested. But because there was a package, there was a formal way of paying for it, they could get services there. So, yes, what should happen? When the government is saying it has to put in money to pay for health services, you start by the money you are paying to even other private health services, health insurance services, bring them together, bring the whole kitty together, because even the social health fund now, that's what it is aimed to do. Bring all that kitty together so that you have one comprehensive kitty and you're able to pay for your health services.
Okay. So the question was, if he was transitioning, the things that he would do.
Because the issue is transitions, right? Everyone is like, the transition isn't smooth, there's mixed information, he's been in the system. How would he then?
Change management. Yeah, they didn't handle the change properly. That is where we went wrong. And when people lose trust, they stop paying. Because we had so many people coming in on board to make their own contribution. Remember, you cannot police this system. You cannot police people to pay. People have to have the will to pay. So when they start losing trust, what happens? People stop paying. When people stop paying, you lose revenue. And if government is not putting in enough money, what will you have? You will not have enough funds to run the kitty. In our strategic plan, 2016 to 2018, by 2022, NHIF should have been rolling over 150 billion shillings in terms of revenue. So we are in 2025 now, we should be doing over 200 to 250 billion shillings if we are still to cater for the services that people need. Are we doing that now? So there's a huge gap, one, in terms of funding. There's a huge gap, and that's why these consistent issues or healthcare providers, they will not end, because what is happening, there is more demand of services than there are funds to meet those services.
Did you hit that target in the strategic plan 2016 to 2018? How much again was it?
By 2018, we were doing 55 billion shillings.
And the
so
target?
we had hit that target.
The target was?
The target was around 60 thereabout.
60 billion.
Yes. By 2022, should have been doing 150 billion shillings.
And how much
around
is?
2022, I think they did, after I left, they tried to push until around 80 billion shillings from the statistics I have. So right now we should be doing, according to my own estimates, 200 to 250 billion shillings. And it is possible. Our population has expanded, our economy has expanded, so there should be enough money to run our health services.
Like you've said, it's about trust. It's an issue of trust. People will continue paying if they are able to receive the services and they see the benefits, right? I don't want even to come to SHA yet. I want to stick with NHIF. Were people getting the benefits for which they were paying?
Yes.
People were paying 6,000 shillings a year, and you had increased, the active members were about what, 8 million?
7.5 to 10 million. That is household. So you do with a factor of 3. And
so about
we
7.5 were regularly paying.
Yes.
Those were regularly paying.
Yes.
7.5 million.
Yes.
And then the database, of course, had more than that, had about what, 18 million or thereabout. So 7.5 million who were regularly contributing, were they getting the services that they were contributing for?
And I think the cries of let's go to NHIF can attest to that really people are getting services. The other day I met some Catholic priests in a function, and faith-based facilities are really complaining because the services then were better. And we are not saying that the SHA law is not good.
These are the facilities complaining that they were offering better services.
No, the funding now, they are almost closing down because it's no funds. There are no funds now. They are almost closing down.
Yeah.
Then the payments were flowing. You see, because what happens to a healthcare provider, if it doesn't get the continuous flow of resources, they will shut down, because that's what they are relying on. A faith-based facility, most of the members they treat are vulnerable. They cannot afford. They cannot even do an out-of-pocket. So their basic they rely on is insurance payment, and in this case, social health insurance. So the payments are not regularly coming through. And maybe those are the things to be addressed. And I see maybe the challenge they're facing is the funding, because according to the statistics I have, that money is not enough to run our healthcare at the moment. And now, when you don't get the funding,
we want to take a break, Geoffrey.
Before I lose this, when you don't get the funding, you start blaming everybody around you. I mean, we need to come out and be clear. This is a situation we're having. Then people will start having trust with you, and people will start putting even more money to the system.
We'll come back and continue. You'll give us the statistics that you have, the latest statistics. We'll also be looking at what statistics the SHA management and board and the ministry have been releasing in terms of registration, payment. The chairman has told us they are paying within 30 days. Facilities are getting paid. I mean, what's the problem now? Geoffrey Mwangi is a former CEO of NHIF. He is a public healthcare financing expert. We're talking about NHIF versus SHA. Is there a difference? We'll be back in a moment. Fixing the nation, one conversation at a time.
Thank you.
Sleep Music says, is it not absurd that government continues to argue that SHA works, yet government had to waive the costs of treatment for those injured by the rogue police, or they were all not registered? Just some feedback. We'll sample more of it a little later, but I understand we have a caller right now online.
Anne from Thika?
Yep.
Yes. Good morning, Anne.
Good morning, Marion.
How are you?
Oh, I'm very well. I love this program.
Thank you so much.
Now, I want to address this, or the Mr. Mwangi to address these two issues. First of all, I'll go back to a saying that came from Shakespeare, what's in a name? It's neither foot nor arm. Now, I don't think the change of name or address is just the way of solving the problem facing the health insurance. And then there was also that mix-up, NHIF, SHA. He needs to SHA tell us what's going on. Secondly, he has told us that you don't have to police Kenyans to join SHA. I personally have witnessed somewhere where somebody went to a nearby hospital just because had a finger cut by a panga, and was told, and have you registered for SHA? Then we can't handle that. Is the registration more important than what is happening at that particular time? Don't you think that raises eyebrows on why this person, or a private hospital for that matter, was forcing that person to go and register first?
Right.
Then he should tell us what was ailing NHIF. And I want to believe, or what I have learned, there was a lot of fraud. How is SHA fraud proof? I think that's where the problem is with Kenyans. How are you going to make it fraud proof? That is what should be explained to the Kenyans in the best and easiest language possible. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Anne.
Really good questions. 3 on total. Yeah.
Let me start maybe with that on fraud. Fraud is not only in Kenya, and especially medical fraud. And when we talk of insurance industry, 10% of everything that is paid out is normally fraudulent. So it's not unique to Kenya. And out of that 10%, 40% is normally on health insurance. So fraud is not unique. Anywhere a human being is, there will be an element of fraud. The issue is, what do you do to mitigate? What do you do to counter? What do you do to improve the systems? Now, for health insurance, the beneficiary should be the best custodian of the system. You have to make the beneficiary your key to police the system, because they should own it. They should feel, this is my money, I should protect it. Because what types of fraud do we normally have? Either the member with the facility, or the facility with the underwriter or the insurer, or the, So how do you protect all that? In the mix of all these, the person in between is the member. So you need to make them the biggest custodian of the system.
How do you do that?
By letting them own the health, the package. By letting them feel that this is my benefit. You shouldn't dare the services to the member. The member should own it. This is my package. This is my health insurance. This is my product.
Okay. So
other than them looking at it that this is government thing. The moment the people see is, this is government thing. The government is telling us to do this. The government, that's
same way you think of it as like when you're signing up for a private insurance package, you go through, you're aware of your cover, what you're covered for, your benefits, everything.
Yes.
So you go from a point of knowledge.
Exactly.
Same should be with SHA.
Yes, not to be told it is mandatory, you have to pay. Well, far much that it should be mandatory, because everybody should have a health insurance package. But how do you drive that point? And this is what I said, change management is very critical in this aspect. Very, very critical.
So there's a lot of fraud in NHIF. And one of the things that, they kept saying is there was so much leakage in NHIF that, this thing just needed to be overhauled and removed. Is that true?
Eric, we lost that debate the moment we start saying we are transitioning from SHA, we want to do all these resources to do A, B, C, D. So some element being said here is to try justify some things. Because who has come up with any statistics to say this is exactly the amount that we lost, or this is exactly what happened? So in the midst of all our politics, we've lost a good debate trying to justify some things, and that's how I see it. And I said, you can never eliminate the element of fraud. There will always be some issues here and there, but what magnitude are there? Is it levels being said to justify some things, or exactly what are we saying? we wanted to change.
What
I believe the
fraud
change should have come because we needed to improve our social health insurance coverage. We needed to improve the service delivery platform. We needed to attain universal health coverage. And what do we do to attain universal health coverage? What were we lacking? Especially the primary health was not there, and the emergency and chronic. And they not brought in that. So these are the hula baloo, or we need to buy new systems, or we need, it's all theatrics and Kenyan political way of doing things, which we are saying we should change.
But we're addressing your tenure, just speaking to, at the time, just speaking to the fraud, because Anne has said, this is what we know as Kenyans, is that there was a lot of fraud within NHIF. And I think Kenyans, in order to rebuild their trust, to even understand why we're transitioning systems, it's important to perhaps just unpack some of what was really ailing the system at the time.
And she was just like, what was ailing NHIF, so that now what will make SHA
different,
fail-proof. Yes, fraud-proof. Actually, she used the word fraud-proof. Yes.
And that's the element I'm saying. We may lose that debate if we try to use that element of fraud to justify some things and not really transition. You get. So, good systems, yes, they work. Putting in good systems will prevent fraud, and especially in this era of AI. I was just going through a global report, and I was saying AI has contributed to about a reduction of 10% of global fraud on insurance, which is a good thing, trying to put in new systems. What should we be doing locally, especially in the health platform? We need to improve our payment mechanism systems. We need to change the way we reimburse health facilities. We are just stuck in the old ways of doing things. And with that, you cannot change much about fraud because people already know what happens and where to kick in. So we need to change. We need to introduce new ways, new models of what we call health payment mechanisms.
So politics aside, SHA still runs the risk of being another cash cow, right? Because citizen trust, accountability, transparency, those have all been issues that were even tied to NHIF. So based on what you're saying, do you feel like SHA also just runs the risk of becoming yet another cash cow?
Well,
cash cartel even,
if
actually.
the right systems are not put in place, we will get up there. But what I see it now, I think it is underfunding, which is the real problem. And we are trying to justify underfunding by trying to point out all their frauds here and there. So we need to really get exactly. Maybe some facilities are not getting their funds because there are no funds to pay them. Yeah, we have not hit the target we need to raise for healthcare in this country at this moment. So that is a critical element.
Sorry to go back again. Every person we've spoken to about SHA, whether it's the cabinet secretary, whether it's the head, the CEO, the chair, yes, they said the pending bills that we were left with from NHIF are really the crux. Us, we pay within 30 days. Facilities are sorted, but we have pending bills in billions and billions and billions from NHIF days.
Well, I don't know when the pending bills came in, because by the time I exited, we were paying hospitals within 21 days. Actually, we had improved to 14 days. And we still had a surplus of 20.5 billion shillings in fixed deposit. So I don't know where the element of pending bills came. And you know, this is what I was saying. These blame games.
Previous management of NHIF talking about a cash crunch. This is NHIF. And they were saying that it was due to lack of remittances by many of these providers, no, not providers, but members. So those who are working for universities, public institutions, some government, and also government was supposed to be putting in some money, for example, for Linda Mama and so on and so forth. And when that cash does not come from the National Treasury to NHIF, so NHIF is only using the contributing members' money to cover for all, including all those managed schemes. And that led to cash crunch. That led to NHIF just being, what's the word?
Yeah, I think that could have happened later, but by 2018, the government was paying promptly, and we had all the monies paid in, even the Linda Mama funds had been received. And if the government has refused to pay, that's a different, you can't say you have pending bills were left, you know, I mean, it's the government which has refused to make its bit of contribution.
Yes.
So that's a different situation.
But the service provider knows NHIF has not paid me. So
Yes.
there's a pending bill between NHIF and a hospital.
The person talking about pending bills is the government himself. Who should you get the
So
you get
if
the
we
gist, you get the suckers. You
if we
get the
spoke to the
suckers.
hospitals, you don't think they would say that NHIF owes them money?
Yeah, they would say it's NHIF because that's what the
That's what they
contracting
know.
party. That was the contracting party.
Yes.
And the transitioning party is the government. The contracting party had an arrangement with the government to be paid some money. The government has not paid money. The government has transitioned to SHA. Then they should not keep blaming the other contracting party because it is them who have not remitted. I mean, and these are the games we are saying. I think Kenyans have seen enough of these games and they're saying, no, we need to rise above and move on and do things the way they're supposed to be
I'll
done.
go back to something I tried. Let me try reframe it. If you had one chance to change Kenya's health financing model from scratch, what would you change first? Because I think the problem is the financing, the problem is the transparency and trust. You've been in the system, so you have some insights. So say somebody said, okay, give us from scratch Kenya's health financing model. What would you change first?
What would we change?
What would you change first?
Is
yes?
just get first trust of the members, trust of Kenyans
And then?
to own it. Then from there, trust of the healthcare providers. Remember, you can't do this alone. The moment you get those two people on board, then you get a willing government to put in its share of the premiums. You're good and done. That's the only thing you need to do. Get the trust of the people to own the system. Get the trust of the people delivering the services. It is not a ping-pong thing. You know, you are the bad guys, you know, because that's what's happening now. If you get those players on board, and then you get the will of the government, then that's all you need to move and have a well functioned, because we have the law, benefit package in this era. It's already there. We know what members should expect when they go to healthcare facilities. The science is enough to give us what payment mechanisms we should be moving. You know, those are things which are there. But without the goodwill of the members and without the goodwill of the healthcare providers, you're headed nowhere, even with all that. And that's exactly where we are now. So we need to bring those people on board, bring the employers also, bring the employers to know that by 2018, we had trust of employers who were even actually choosing NHIF as their underwriter of choice. You get. So we need to get to that level. Right now, I don't think there's any employer who can touch it. So
they're doing it by force.
Yeah.
Now, yesterday, the day before yesterday, the Cabinet Secretary for Health announced that, you know what, the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council has deregistered some facilities because they've detected fraud. These facilities are doing a couple of fraudulent things, making fraudulent claims, claiming that you know, they've admitted a patient and the patient has not been admitted, and so on and so forth. Does that sound odd to you? Or is it
that is no more day-to-day work in the insurance industry. You get, Eric, this is what I'm saying. Globally, I've told you 10% of all claims in insurance are normally fraud. But you don't hear people announcing, shouting on top of their roof. You know, some things are administrative. Just handle them administratively, because what happens when people start reading all that, they end up losing more trust with you. And, you know, so even our local private health care underwriters, they face fraud, but you don't hear them shouting on top of their roofs. What they do is they fix it. They put in mechanisms to fix it. So what I'm seeing here is people trying to justify themselves, you get. And this is what we are saying. We need to move out of that. Stop looking for justification. Just do the right thing.
Sad that I have to ask, but then what is a regular level of fraud versus
the
now,
scale?
Yeah, versus now we need to get worried. You know, what's regular industry fraud?
What's global best practice?
Yes, for fraud. What's global best practice for fraud in the insurance industry?
Can I put them in figures?
Yes.
Like in the US in 2023, $80 billion was lost because of fraud. In Europe, in 2024, $68 billion was lost because of fraud.
In both public and private?
Yes. Out of the 10%, 40% is health. So health takes more chunk of that. So what we are saying is, what we need to do is improve the fraud alone cannot bring you down. You need to fix it, and you need to improve, and you need to let the people. And in this case, I'm saying, if I have my insurance cover, I'm the best protector of it, because I cannot collude with the practitioner, because I know it is my cover, it is my money, it is me to protect it. The moment we get that level of confidence with Kenyans that they need to protect their health packages, their social health packages, then we'll be getting somewhere. The moment we get the comfort zone of the providers, we own them. We get in a good working relationship with them, the healthcare providers. They see that because the social health insurance is the biggest payer. We say it's the biggest payer in the industry. So providers cannot do with the social health insurance, because the most people they find are vulnerable. And you remember, by law, they are meant to offer services. So the moment you win their trust and they see this is an arrangement that works for them and for the members that they see, then we rise to another level, and it becomes a nice working environment. So, and you are easily able to pick out those trying to propagate any fraud within that environment.
NHIF was handling just contributions. It was all a members' contributions program. SHA is handling 3 funds. One, Social Health Insurance Fund, SHIF, is members contributing. And then the other 2 funds, the Primary Healthcare Fund, Emergency, Chronic, and Critical Illness Fund, are coming from the exchequer. What are the risks of SHA being able to manage these 3 funds? What would be the red flags from where you sit?
That should just be an increase of more administrative work. And what I see, is the other funds eating into the social health. I don't know, you need to put in more mechanism to prevent that. If the government doesn't remit
on time,
yes, the kitty of the social health gets eroded over time. And at some point, you need to have them. If everybody is a member, you have them merged together, so that we know everybody have made their contribution to social health. And those who have not done their contribution, the government has put in some money for them. And it is overall an employer-employee contribution. Then we will not ask you if you found you on an accident, because we know you're already a member and we need to first give you services. Now, the challenge comes, maybe you have not made your contribution. We found you in an accident situation.
Yeah. You've
been taken to hospital. Services have been given. And the government has not yet remitted the money for the emergency and chronic kitty. So what happens? Who pays for you? You get. And this is where you'll start getting the pull and push with the healthcare providers. So at some point, I think those funds need to be merged. And we say that every person is a member, every person is paid for, and every person is making their own contributions. And if you're vulnerable in the society, the government comes in and does for you. We had a nice program
Universal
then.
healthcare.
Yes.
Just describe
we had a nice program then, whereby there was a national government putting in its own contribution, and the county governments looking at their vulnerable members and paying for them, and trying to put in some money for them. Not only put in some money for them, I put in money for you this year, but I know you're vulnerable. I am the county government. What do I start doing? I should start putting mechanism to move you out of that poverty bracket.
Social protection.
So that over time, we stop this cycle that we even have to be paying because people can afford to pay for themselves. And I think that's the whole essence that the government is there.
Yeah, people are going out of pocket. Sorry. Go ahead.
Just going back into Anne's question, because she was like, somebody goes to a facility and the first thing they're told is, are you registered?
Yeah.
You've read the laws. What's the why should someone register to go to a health facility?
Okay, because you need to be a member. So we are still stuck to that membership thing.
For a cut, hers was like someone amejikata na panga.
Yeah.
They're bleeding. That's emergency care.
That is a chronic care. That is a chronic care should kick in.
It's emergency care, right?
It's emergency. Even under current constitution, you don't need to be asked anything. First, get treatment. It doesn't matter whether it is Aga Khan or whichever facility. First, get treatment. But you remember what happened? They started bringing in fears. Yes, we will treat you. Who will pay for us? Finally, somebody has to pay. You get. So we are not yet there, gentlemen. We are not yet there at that level. And this is what we are saying. This is the level we should be planning to move into. That we don't ask questions. You are sick. We give you treatment. Sorry to say this. There are people vulnerable with certain conditions that they're really suffering right now and they can't afford. Like I have a young boy who's, he lost one kidney. Well, lucky he had the other one. Now the other one started developing problems. He had to go for a test, 50,000 shillings. He can't afford, SHA can't pay. When he did the means testing, the money he was allocated was already over and above. He can't afford, he's jobless. Well, people contribute, he does a scan for the 50,000 at Aga Khan. Later on, he's been prescribed to be getting an injection costing 5,000 every 3 days or something. He can't afford. Now I was looking and saying, we will sit back with this young man and what will we do next time we appear for his burial?
Yeah.
Exactly, that's what you're saying. So we really need a social health that functions and that works. And we need to address the challenges that they are in. It is possible to have it, and I don't see, and I know Kenyans would love to put in money in there. What we need is people to have trust, and we have systems that work. We bring our providers on board. They know that this is our country, this is our social health insurance. We need to have it working, and then we move on.
Okay, we have about a minute, but there's some quick feedback. Sam Masharia, NHIF used to work. I was self-employed then, but SHA isn't. Yet I'm formally employed and funds being deducted from my salary. In Naivasha, it's called Shida. Samuel Wangeshi has spoken twice. Paid up parents. Child admitted at MP SHA in March. SHA system was down. SHA acknowledged so. The system was back up on day 3. They could only pay from day 3. We paid 14,000 shillings out of pocket. We were rudely told to end Upper Hill to a manager to get a refund. The downtime showed that our employers had not paid and they were too frustrated because they'd paid up. I'm in HR, so we'd paid. Okay.
She knows for a fact that they had paid.
She knows for a fact that they had paid.
She's literally HR.
Yeah.
She's telling you.
Yeah.
Ipesa tumepeana.
See, we have remitted
Mm-hmm.
our contribution. Those are the questions now we just don't understand. David says, I'll tell you, 1 times 3 is different from 3 times 1. You'll tell me, 1 times 3 is different from 3. How?
Try
with
the
let the doctor give you a prescription and they write 1 times 3 and you go and do 3 times 1.
Okay.
Hapo ndio utajua.
Sawa basi.
Utajua
Malenge ni mboga.
I recently had a Jimmy Gakio. I recently had a bill of 320k. SHA paid 30. I would love to know more details.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but this
Jimmy
is
ako wapi? I thought Jimmy is running abroad somewhere. Jimmy
Gakio.
Gakio.
That's not Barney Lake.
Something
you're
else
right.
we need to
He's
have.
going to Santa's Awards of Nation
He's
video
from
somewhere.
Bonnie Lake, but does it have to be his bill?
Could have been somebody.
I don't
So his
know.
bill was 20k,
No, 320
320.
and SHA paid 30.
It's like
Something else
10%.
that has eluded us is what we call costing of healthcare services. And I remember we had started doing this study because over time you need to cost your healthcare services so that you know exactly when you are paying, what are you paying for. What we do here, we pay fixed fee for service. So you don't know who is it the practitioner's value, is it the consumer's value, whose value is it, or is it the actual cost of the services?
Yeah, thank you.
We might need a part 2, but thank you so much, Geoffrey Mwangi, of course, former CEO NHIF and a social health finance expert. We're getting into a break right now. We'll be back in the next hour. Of course, keep it #FixingTheNation NTV. Keep it here on Nation FM, NTV, YouTube, Facebook, kila mahali.